Let's do a part 2 then. This time, Kylen is going to share her thoughts on everything I've been discussing. I'm looking forward to this. I'm just going to drop it to you and sit back and enjoy. Here is some more Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. You can follow Kylen Mills on all social media platforms at Kylen Mills. Great to finally see you. Your first thoughts on the Kings deciding to let go of Nerlens Noel's. They also let go of a second player. I don't know how familiar you are with him. His name is Neemias Queta. Those two are available now. Any thoughts in regards to either one of those two players maybe joining the Warriors? And how the hell are you doing?
I'm doing great. Again, apologies. I'm doing great now. Apologies for the delay. Like I said, just randomly had my computer's internal camera malfunction, so that's fun to deal with. But in terms of the Kings waiving Nerlens Noel, I don't think he would be a bad pickup at this point. I'm happy if the Warriors pick up any big. And, Noel has the size, 7'4" wingspan. He's 6'10". And at this point, like any big, any size to me is a positive. So I know some people might come at me or have some thoughts on, Noel. But I mean, who else are they going to get for the 14th roster spot? And it's crazy looking back to last season. The Warriors literally had like 12 people because you have to think that 13th spot, Ryan Rollins was virtually, a non-factor. And then Andre Iguodala was a non-factor. So, like, if the Warriors get anyone who can even play, like, any amount, I am happy. But if they get someone who adds size, then I will really be happy. So, I don't think Noel would be bad if you're talking about a 14th roster spot here.
Right. No, I totally agree. And I was talking about a little bit about Neemias Queta. I just remember seeing him in G League, just manhandling the Santa Cruz Warriors. He's a 7-footer. He's got a ton of size. I'm going to list a bunch of names to you, and I'd love to get your thoughts because I went through all of this. Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype reported 6 players have worked out for the Golden State Warriors. And I'm going to list to you all 6 of those players, and you tell me your thoughts. Do you want to go one at a time or all 6 at once? What's your preference?
Whatever. I don't know. Either way.
All right. Well, I'll go one at a time.
All 6 because I
all 6. Okay.
I saw the report, so let's just
all 6. Okay.
Go.
So the 6 players again, and I've exhausted everyone with my thoughts on them. Kent Bazemore, Juan Toscano-Anderson, Dwayne Dedmon, Will Barton, Jalen Noel, Stanley Johnson, and Derek Favors. That's actually 7. So those 7 players. I'm sorry. 4 of them are bigs, maybe 5. Your thoughts? I mean, some of them to me are obvious no's, but some of them are intriguing. Take it away.
First of all, I have regularly, who is your nose? Because I was going to say, I've regularly advocated that I don't think that Juan Toscano-Anderson's a bad choice in terms of adding that 14th person. He had size, you're going to get from him. You're going to get more, like I said, than Andre or Ryan. You know that he's a good Rollins. I mean, you know that he's going to be a good culture piece. So to me, that's the easiest choice to make out of all those players. Among the rest of them, who to you stands out among that group?
Well, my no's are Kent Bazemore. Hell
no.
Hell no. Why is even? I don't understand why. Is this a favor to Steph Curry? I don't get the Kent Bazemore part. Will Barton is a no. I don't mind him, but I don't see what the point is. You're not.
I was going to say he's a solid shooter because to me Barton I would be okay with because how big is he? I mean, if he's
like 6'4",
size who can spread the floor, but I don't know.
He's a 2. He's like 6'4". I think that's what his height. I just don't know how he's going to fit in there. He's 6'6". I'm sorry, I got that wrong a little bit, but yeah, he's a wing. And then and I just don't know where he'd fit. And then Jalen Noel, who I wouldn't hate. He's one that I would say no. I'm saying no to all the smaller players, basically. I that's where I went. I don't know. Does Dwayne Dedman, Dwayne Dedman or Derek Favors? Those are two traditional centers. I'm a little surprised, especially with the Derek Favors name being dropped here. I did not think the Warriors would consider him. He's more of a prodding, slow center. Either of those two excite you or interest you? What are your thoughts on those two?
I think that exactly what you just said about Favors, like, this is a Warriors team that supposedly wants to run the floor and move at a fast pace. And they already have kind of a slow center in Kevon Looney. I'm sorry, but he ain't quick. So that's another one where I feel like the skill set, is it going to make sense with what the Warriors are doing? So that's kind of my question about that. Like, they already have Kevon Looney, and he's not quick. So, and he's also not, Kevon Looney's not a big point scorer. He's not a super skilled offensive big. So I don't know. What were the other names again?
Well, first of all, I just want to give kudos to Douglas Mikes, because I agree regarding Keita. He is eligible for a two-way deal. And if he accepts that with the Warriors, that's a no-brainer to me as well. That's what Douglas Mikes writes. So the players again are Dwayne Dedman and Derek Favors are the two they brought in. They're like really traditional center type bigs. Jalen Noel and Will Barton are like shooting guard types. Stanley Johnson is an intriguing one. He's like a Swiss Army knife type player. He's 6'7", can probably guard 1 through 5. He's not a skinny player. He's got some meat on his bones, so he's strong. Any thoughts on Stanley Johnson?
No, I was thinking about Dwayne Dedman though. I want to know what his 3-point numbers were, because I thought he was a solid 3-point shooter who could stretch defenses, and he's a pretty good shot blocker, very active defensively. So solid. He's more solid athletically, so that's why I maybe think that he could work possibly. I don't know.
I wouldn't hate on Dwayne Dedman. He would give you tough. Yeah. It's interesting you said he's a shooter. That surprised me for a second, but then I'm looking at his numbers.
I was going to say solid. I wanted to look up his numbers, though, because I can't.
He shot no, look, he only played 8 games with Philly last year, but in those 8 games, he shot 50% from 3. He was at 30% with Miami. But again, you're not bringing him in for that. If you get Dwayne Dedman, you're bringing him in just to play some D and grab rebounds.
But he can do those things, and he's a defender.
Absolutely. AC in the chat is writing that Blazers fans want Keita as well. Douglas Mike saying someone tell the Raptors to buy out Otto Porter Jr. That would be an intriguing one to come back to the Warriors if that happened. Juan Toscano Anderson. If it'll again, I mentioned this while you were trying to troubleshoot and figure out what was going on. I mentioned that how we both have spent time before on the show discussing this. It's kind of crazy that they keep working him out. Like, it's really weird to me. Like, you'd think if they were going to sign him, they would have just signed him. And is that still weird to you at all or no? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what more the Warriors need to find out about Juan Toscano Anderson, because to me, he's one of the more consistent players that the Warriors have had. And just that, like, what you're going to get from him pretty much night in and night out. He'll fight for loose balls. He'll pull in a couple rebounds. He's not going to give you a ton of creativity or anything offensively. I just think he's solid. Like, he's solid. He'll play hard defense. He's going to commit a couple fouls every game. But to me, it's a very much like what you see is what you get. And so I just don't know, like, what is going to be different in working out JTA over and over again now versus him being on the championship team just 2 seasons ago, working him out once. Like, I guess maybe if you want to update his progress or whatever else, but like, why repetitive workouts with him? Like, I just don't see him being a player who's drastically changed from 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, from what I saw of him playing this last season in LA, like, it didn't look like he was a totally different player where there were suddenly like, oh, wow, we got to work him out multiple times. There's so many, like, he's not drastically different. Like, what is there to see? I mean, have you noticed anything different about his game? Because I haven't.
No, that's why the whole thing is weird, is bizarre to me that they're working him out. it tells me that they're not that excited. And it also tells me that Juan Toscano Anderson is not getting a lot of interest out there, because I don't think he's doing this if he had other suitors out there. But anyways, when we come back, we'll finish up talking about these remaining openings. I also want to get your thoughts, Kylen, on the report from Mark Spears that Chris Paul is going to be a starter. I'll play that soundbite again, because I don't know if you've seen that or heard that, and we'd love to get your feedback. First, got to give some love, though, to our new sponsor. Did you get the pack, by the way? Did you put the order in for Jase Medical, Kylen? They said at least supposedly all of us hosts could get a free case from them. So when we do this ad read, we can actually give a direct, a personal, anecdote. But for some reason, I had issues when I tried to order mine. Look, do you have a medical kit at home, Kylen? Let me ask you that. Like an emergency medical kit.
No, but I could use one. I have like Band-Aids and, a couple of little products in the medicine cabinet, but not like an emergency kit, which is honestly something that is a necessity.
You're absolutely right. And that's what Jase Medical is all about. But in addition to the stuff that you typically think of for a medical kit, like you mentioned, Band-Aids, maybe some gauze, the Jase case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. And all it takes to get a Jase case is fill out a simple online form. And in some cases, you might have to jump on a quick call with one of their board-certified physicians. And then that's it. And you can actually have at your disposal antibiotics, which is the best treatment for an infection. Whether it's a sinus infection, whether it's something with your skin, whatever it is, the Jase case gives you the peace of mind that you're looking for when you need emergency help with a medical issue. And you could save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using the code LOCKEDON at checkout at jasemedical.com. That's Jase, Jase, medical.com, and use the promo code LOCKEDON.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day for the everydayers. Tomorrow, I got CJ Holmes coming on the show, Golden State Warriors beat reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle. I'm going to get his insights on what we've been talking about, plus hopefully learn a lot of new stuff. But right now, Kylen Mills joins me. You can follow Kylen on all social media platforms at Kylen Mills, her name. It's super easy. I'm going to, I don't have the soundbite anymore. Well, it doesn't matter. I played it once already. But Mark Spears was on a podcast last week with, I believe, Yahoo Sports. And he revealed that, according to his sources, Chris Paul is going to be starting for the Golden State Warriors this year. I don't like it. What are your thoughts?
I hate it. I don't just dislike it. I hate it because he's not going to replace, Steph or Clay. What he's going to do is pull Looney and go with the smallest and oldest lineup in the NBA. And I've been against it from the beginning. I don't care how many games Chris Paul started in his career. It does not make sense. It is not a winning recipe. Now, granted, part of what Spears said is that Paul would likely play in short bursts, and it would be maybe even 5 to 6 minutes into the game before Kevon Looney would enter. But I don't care. This team has already struggled with size. It's been a huge issue in the last 2 seasons. They managed to win a championship despite the fact that they were undersized 2 seasons ago. And last year it was a major kryptonite. It was a big reason why the Warriors couldn't beat the Lakers. Now you're looking at, just how effective the Nuggets are and not having an answer for Jokic. And the Warriors are now just, their stars at least, a year older. And some of those pieces and role players off the bench, at least last season, weren't necessarily at the same level they were at during the championship year. So to me, how is this going to help the Warriors getting smaller and older? Like Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, all players who were mid to late 30s. What? I don't see how that's going to be a winning recipe. They're small and they're old. All of them except Wiggins will be, over 30. So I don't see how that's a winning recipe for a team that's already had issues with size. To me, that was one of the big gaping issues and one of the reasons why they were eliminated against the Lakers is because Anthony Davis dominated. The Warriors managed to somehow squeak it out against the Kings, but at times in that series, they were getting dominated inside, but it was very apparent against the Lakers. And now you've got to put your target on the back of the Denver Nuggets and what they're able to do. And the Warriors, I don't think, have that edge. So I hate it. I also think that the Warriors need a veteran leader, and they need someone who can run the offense in the second unit. JP3 was supposed to be that guy. He was shipped off in the offseason because it didn't quite work out. He wasn't performing up to standards and what the expectations were. And he really struggled, to me, to run the offense. So let's say Looney is in the second unit and Chris Paul is starting. I guess what's the plan? Because Steph Curry also isn't going to be putting in huge. I mean, he needs to be monitored in terms of the minutes that he's contributing. It needs to be watched. So I'm just saying, who's the second? Who's really getting it done with the second unit?
I'm totally
Dante DiVincenzo's gone.
Yeah, you're right, and I'm glad you brought. I forgot. I didn't touch on this the first part, and I'm glad you did, which is the 5-minute burst. And I'm glad Mark Spears brought that up too, because it was really eye-opening and enlightening in terms of how they're going to use Chris Paul. My thought was, you're right. If they use him in those first 5 minutes, he's no longer running that second unit. And then how is he going to be used in the second and fourth quarters? Like, is he playing the first 5 minutes? Is he playing the last 5 minutes? I'm totally with you. Like, to me, the entire value of Chris Paul is him helping that second unit and carrying them and helping the development of Kuminga and Moody, setting up other players. It just looks like a disaster to start him. I don't get it. I do not get that at all. It makes no damn sense. Yeah.
I like one of the comments here. 2024, we are the oldest, we are the slowest, and we are the smallest.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a good place to be. And that's literally where the Warriors are about to be at. And the thing that also makes me mad is with the small ball lineup, like, the Warriors have to be able to run teams out of the gym. And once again, like, they've only gotten older and slower from season to season. So it's like, if you go small, then, the idea is that they can, really push the pace. But at the same time, like, Chris Paul, he's a player who likes to slow it down. Like, he's a player who likes to work in the half court, and he's old. Like, how is this going to work? Like, you just got to look at weighing out what the strengths are. And if you do have a team that's smaller, they've got to be super fast, and you got to look to get out in transition and run a fast offense. Don't know that that's necessarily the Warriors' strengths either. So I don't get what the balance is going to be. Jill says we're the smartest. The Warriors do have a lot of smart players.
That's true.
But still, that's not going to compensate for these issues that we're talking about. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I just what's the?
I don't get it.
Unit? Like, I don't.
Yeah, and look, this could be a year, and it's a fear of mine, but this could be a year where it seems like this is the impression I'm getting, because Ken Mama writes, we had defense and lack of size issues last season. Then we get Chris Paul, who doesn't solve the size issues, maybe helps with the defense a little bit, but what's happening to our team, right? My theory in terms of what's going on, and Kylen, I'd love to know if you agree or disagree with this, is that last season, and we touched on this a lot, that behind the scenes, there was a proxy war. And when I say that, I don't mean like literally two people hating each other, but there was a battle over vision and control between Steve Kerr and Bob Myers. Steve Kerr won. Okay. Like, Joe Lacob gave Steve Kerr the keys. Steve Kerr went and hired his son to run the Santa Cruz team, and Steve Kerr is in control. Steve Kerr likes small ball. All right. For some reason, he's morphed into Don Nelson 2.0, except he has rings. But Don Nelson also never had Steph and Curry, so who knows what would have happened there. But he's turned into someone who just loves smaller players. It was kind of interesting to me. I feel like Team USA in the recent FIBA World Cup had just one reporter that was like really giving us information from the scene there, and it was, what's his name from ESPN, Brian Windhorst. He was the only person there that was like writing recaps, giving you inside news. And Windhorst actually wrote something that was very interesting, because apparently he actually asked Steve Kerr like why he likes small ball so much, and it was just a little blurb in the story, but the answer was speed and versatility. Like in Steve Kerr's eyes, when you have a smaller team, you're faster and you have more versatility. And I think the versatility is referencing defense and being able to be switch heavy, not getting burned on pick and rolls and so forth. So my theory is that the team is acquiescing to Steve Kerr and just basically saying, this is your vision, this is your team, we're going to follow your lead. And either people like myself are going to be proven wrong and he's right, or this is going to be a really tough year, and then I have no idea what happens after the season. That's my guess for what's going on here, is that the team is just really going all in on Steve Kerr and his vision. Who knows if that vision is going to translate to success? When we come back, I'd love to get your thoughts on what I just said there, Kylen, because we got to give some love. I was telling the folks that we're officially now getting back into the season. The preseason starts on October 7th. We haven't gotten a date yet for a training camp. Last year, I think it was like September 24th. But we're almost there. Like next week, we're back to full time. And that means sometimes 2 ads in one show. And we got 2 today. And the second one is FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use. You can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. Kevin Dannon was on the show recently. He brought up the fact that you could use VPN to play FanDuel in a place like California. I'll leave that up to you. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
One final segment. You can follow Kylen Mills on all social media platforms at her name. It's super easy. Kylen Mills. You can follow me on Threads at Dog Wild. Kylen, in the chat, Jill Espina, I think, said it best. Is it Kerr the iconoclast or is it Kerr the masochist? Your thoughts?
Genji Gok also made a great point in the chat. Even second-tier centers destroyed us last year. So I don't know. I guess he's a masochist. I don't know. I hate it. I hate everything about it. I don't think the small ball worked for Team USA either. Like,
it didn't.
I'm sorry, but no, it didn't work there. So honestly, I think Steve Kerr is a great coach. I think he's done a lot of things right. I'm not buying into the small ball. I'm not. Based on the way the NBA is played right now and the other teams they have to compete against and what happened last season, like, I am not a believer that the small ball is going to be what the Warriors are going to ride into the promised land. Add some size, please. It was an issue last year. My big question that I want to ask you is, like, what is the rotation going to be? So let's say Chris Paul's in the starting lineup, like, next player's off the bench. Like, I just don't see the right mix. Like, there has to be someone who, and I know we've talked about how the Warriors don't necessarily need a traditional point guard, but I still think that second unit needs a calming presence, some experience. I mean, one thing that Chris Paul is good at is slowing the game down a little bit, but also like the leadership aspect, low turnovers. And you've got Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody, who are young players who are going to be taking on bigger roles. Like, they need the help. And I like the idea of the CP3 and Jonathan Kuminga lob threat together. And I think that can work in the second unit. You've got Gary Payton II, who's a guard, but he's not a guard that's running your offense. So, it's like, if you look at the next couple of players coming off the bench, and let's say it's Moody, Kuminga, Moses, Moody, JK, Looney, and Gary Payton II, like, who's running that offense? Like, what's the plan here?
I guess Joseph, I guess, but I don't. You're right. I don't.
I'm just saying. So, so CP3 goes off after 5 or 6 minutes. Steph also has to come off the floor. So
yes.
What's happening after that point in time? Like, that's my big question. I guess, like, I know they've done a thing for a while where they were staggering Draymond and having Draymond kind of like run the second unit, but like, that's our game plan for the whole season. Like, I don't get the rotation. To me, it makes perfect sense to have CP3 in the second unit. It makes sense. So I don't know.
Yep. I just want things to make sense. I'm totally with you. And none of this does. Zoe wrote, I hope Trace Jackson Davis is the answer. A few other people wrote that as well. Again, you're counting on a rookie. Now, granted,
And Sneaker doesn't like playing rookies and young guys either.
Right. And that's where Vincent, you added, he has been legally drinking for almost 3 years. He's not an ordinary rookie, but he still has no NBA experience. But going back to what Zoe wrote, I started this from way earlier in the show. So this goes for both of us. Kylen, if you were the GM of the Warriors, if you were in Mike Dunleavy Jr.'s shoes, who is the center you want to sign or trade for? I'll answer this as well, but I'm asking you first, Kylen. Like, if you're the GM, who is out there that you want above everyone else? It's a tough one.
I don't know, though, who could realistically be traded for. I mean, initially, I was like, ooh, could the Warriors pick up DeAndre Ayton because he's unhappy in Phoenix?
Yes.
And then I like JaVale McGee. Those were the two that I felt like were realistic. I mean, if you're talking about anyone, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that because, trying to look at the options that the Warriors realistically could get. But DeAndre Ayton was one that I don't know, because of the issues he had in Phoenix, I was like, is this a guy who would be willing to leave? And I like DeAndre Ayton. I think that the skill set he brings would help the Warriors. And I think that, I know there's been some controversy around him, but I think that the Warriors could make it work personally.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, the player I wanted was JaVale McGee.
And JaVale McGee, 100%.
Yeah, clearly the Warriors didn't want him, so that was that. So I mean, right, of all the players who are literally out there, and these aren't great options, I'm slightly leaning toward Keita, Neemias Keita, just because he is the dude. When he's out there, it's impossible to just grab a rebound around him, to just drive past him. The dude is huge, and he's athletic. And I just remember watching him play in the G League thinking, wow, this guy's NBA ready. So, but there are no really awesome options out there. I mean, Bam Adebayo is another name that's listed out there. I wouldn't mind him either.
I'm just saying, I've seen Ayton in some of the proposed trade, rumors and the articles that have come out in the last couple of days. So that's what made me think of it, is because, if there was a player who would possibly be up for discussion, I feel like the trade rumors around DeAndre Ayton will never end.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the Suns are small too. If they don't make that work, I don't know what their answer is. But this is another question as we wrap the show up from Ken Mamba, who writes, and we'll use this for both of us. Oh yeah, Kai Sai. Who would you make the second unit if you're coaching? Who would be your second? I know you just touched on this, but one more time, so what would be your primary second unit for the Warriors if you were head coach?
I mean, all the guys that I just mentioned, except for I think CP3 has to be in there in that second unit. I think you go with the Warriors starting lineup that worked last year. It was the most effective starting lineup when you look at the offensive numbers. I know we've talked about this on the show, but the actual 5-man breakdowns, league wide, the Warriors starters, who also won a championship a season ago, were among the most effective despite the team's struggles. I just don't understand why break that up to get smaller and older. So I would keep that same starting 5. And then I think you'd have CP3 who could come in and run the offense. I think that Moody needs to be a regular and get more minutes more consistently than he did last year. Give him a bigger role. Jonathan Kuminga, I think, could be really great in a pick and roll with CP3. I want him coming off the bench early. Gary Payton II adds, the defense and the perimeter defending that you're looking for. So I think those 4 right away. And who am I forgetting? Those are my first 4 right off the bench.
And then Gary,
the rookies who are in the mix, but I think they're going to spend some time probably in Santa Cruz. They're going to take a little bit of developing. And then you have Saric also, who can add some size. And to me, that's a good looking second unit. I actually really like that. I think if you're looking at CP3, Gary Payton II, Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, Dario Saric, I think that's a good second unit.
It is, because it is. Good. Yeah.
This is why I hate the idea of CP3 starting.
Yeah, I can't. And not to mention, I was also getting a little excited, and I'm with you 100%. I think that's my second unit as well. Mm-hmm. And I was getting a little excited about staggering Klay's minutes so that Klay could play on that second unit alongside Chris Paul as well. I mean, we've heard that talk about how good Klay could be getting set up by Chris Paul. And look, that could still happen with Paul in the starting unit, but dude, they're going to get slaughtered. I don't see how that's going to work. I really don't see how that's going to work. I'm very curious to see if Mark Spears was right about that or not. But yeah, we'll find out.
My question is, if it doesn't work, will Steve Kerr will he be stubborn, or will he actually change and make adjustments? Because I do feel like we saw it this last season a little bit more than past years, where he's a little bit stubborn. He's a little bit stubborn when it comes to playing some of the young guys, when it comes to going small. Like, to me, there were times where I was like, Steve, just like make the change that we all want you to make. Come on, buddy. And he didn't do it. So I guess that's my next biggest question is, if this experiment doesn't work out, then what's next? Is Steve Kerr going to make the necessary adjustments, or is he going to ride, just keep riding the small ball, keep CP3 in the starting lineup? Like, I am very curious to see also, if it doesn't work, what's going to be the response?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Joe Lacob does not like to lose. So if we have another season like Ken Mamba wrote this, Kai and Sai, are you ready for another stressful season? Every time a game ends, he's like, can't wait for the podcast. I don't want to go through that again. I really don't. It's not fun from my perspective to just be irritated night after night because of what's going on. We'll see. I will say this. It's going to be damn interesting with Chris Paul in the mix. I do love that Dario Saric is in the mix for the Warriors now. I love it.
I do.
So, and I love that Trace Jackson Davis was drafted. I think these are actually solid players, but I've been saying this on the show all offseason. I think they're one short when it comes to bigs. Like I would be a lot more comfortable with one more big body, because their Warriors are operating under the premise here that for the third year in a row, Kevon Looney is going to be perfectly healthy. That's crazy, right? Like that's an insane thing to count.
His streak is insane. Like, if he goes through another season like he did, that's unreal. I mean, the only player who's played in more consecutive games is Mikal Bridges, like that of active NBA players. So that you can't bank on that. You can't bank on that again. Yep. And he went through some trials and tribulations where he was having back issues this last season, and he was listed as questionable many, many times and played through it. Like, you can only do that for so long. Like, when you get knocked around and you're dealing with soreness and all these other issues before, then it comes to bite you, and then you get seriously hurt. Because that's the other thing. When you're dealing with pain or dealing with soreness, you're more susceptible to a serious injury. So I am hoping that is not the case this year.
Absolutely right. Well, thank you, everyone. Kylen, I'm so stoked you made it. I never, ever ask for thoughts and prayers. This one time I'm going to ask for it because my dad's in the hospital right now. He had a heart attack. It's kind of, I'm very, I can't believe I did a show in lieu of that. So for my dad, thoughts and prayers, please. Kylen, great to see you. Thanks to everyone. Anything we forgot? Are we all good?
No, Sai, we're sending all our love, thoughts, prayers. Everyone drop a comment, because, that's just an awful thing to go through. And I don't know how you're on the show, but then again, it is good to have distractions, get your mind off it maybe for a little bit. But appreciate you coming on. And, of course, sorry for what you're going through. And everyone drop a comment, because Sai is a warrior for coming on and doing a podcast after all that. But I hope your dad gets well soon. And
I hope so too. My sister's there. I'm going to call right now and see how it's going. All right, folks. Thank you so much. Kylen, thank you. And I'll be back at this tomorrow with CJ Holmes. And Kylen, you and I next week. We're going to be doing it 2 days a week. We're back to the schedule.
2 days a week. Hey.
we're back.
Summer vacation's over, people.
It is. Sadly, it's over. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back at this soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. I had to do something.